Hi there, Preps 1s and 2s. Welcome back to Term 4. Fingers crossed this will be our last online lesson for the year. I thought that before we got back to school, we should start looking at a little bit of safety, just so we can remember how we need to move when we get back to school, just to be able to protect ourselves from getting injured. And I know all about injuries. I've had knee injuries and shoulder injuries and elbow injuries, and a lot of them were caused because I didn't really know how to absorb a fall. And you might hear another word for that, and it's called giving. So giving is like when you jump up in the air and you bend your knees on the way down. You give a little bit to that jumping force, bringing you down. Because if I was to jump straight up, which I have done and I have hurt my knee, if I jump straight up and I land with straight legs, there isn't a lot of give for that force. And all that force can go straight through all the joints in my body and I can get hurt. So we're going to learn 3 different ways that we can give today. We're going to learn how to give with our legs, we're going to learn how to give with our arms, and we're going to learn how to give when we're catching an object as well. So the first activity we're going to do is giving with our legs, and we're going to practice some safety jumps. So when we jump, we squat down and everything bends. Our ankles bend, our knees bend, and our hips bend. And it looks like this from side on. We bend out our hips, we bend out our knees, and we bend out our ankles. And we're going to be pushing really hard and jumping up and getting into the air, but we need to remember that when we land, which I notice a lot of you do in your videos, we don't want to be landing with straight legs because all that force is going to go through the joints in our body and we might get hurt. So we're going to land and we're going to give with that force, and we're going to collapse a little bit and bend those joints again. So I'm going to squat down, I'm going to jump up, and when I come down, did you notice that everything bent again? Everything was bending again, and I was giving with that force, and I had a nice soft landing, and you couldn't really hear my feet touching the ground either. And some of you might remember this from last year. That's called a safety landing, and sometimes I called it a motorbike landing position as well. So from front on it looks like this. We go down, we jump up, and we come back down. When we come back down, our feet are shoulder width apart, we bend out our knees, our hips, and we have our arms forward to keep us balanced as well. So I'll demonstrate one more of that, and then you can attempt to do it, say 10 times, feel comfortable, but remember, we're making sure we bend every time on the way down and we give with that force. So that's what it looks like from front on, from side on. And my feet are very gentle on the ground. You didn't hear them, and I had a nice soft landing because I gave with that jumping force. Press pause, and you can practice 10 to 20 of those jumps. Remember, I don't want to see any straight legs. And when you're finished that, you can come back and I'll teach you the next giving activity. Alright everybody, for the next one, we're going to be giving with our arms. So I notice quite often when I see you fall over at school, which does happen, is that when you go to fall over and you start landing, you might have your arms locked out and straight, and you land like this. And I just think that must hurt your wrists and your elbows a lot, because I know that particularly when I was younger, I went to the beach and I used to try and skimboard. That's like a really tiny little surfboard, and you skim on a little thin layer of water. And I'd put this board down on the ground and I'd go to jump on it, and the board would flick out from under my feet and I'd start to fall backwards. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I didn't give myself any give when I landed. So I fell down, and when I landed on my elbow and my shoulder went into my neck because there's no give there. I can't bend that part of my arm, can I? When really what I should have been doing is putting my arm down slowly and bending with it. So we're going to practice an exercise where you'll need a pillow, and you're going to put the pillow on the ground. You're going to kneel on the pillow. Now what we're going to practice doing is keeping our body straight. We're going to practice leaning and falling over forwards with our arms with a little bit of a bend, And as we fall, we're going to give just like we did with our jump. And we're going to bring ourselves down to the ground slowly and give with that force. So it should look like this. Nice and soft. So my arms were never fully locked out, because if I landed like that, oh, my elbows hurt, my shoulder hurts, and it's not a safe way to land. So my arms always stay a little bit bent, I fall forward, and I slowly give with that fall to protect myself. Nice and soft, and nothing hurts that way. So I'll practice one more, that giving force. I'm not letting my face or my chest hit the ground. And then after that you can press pause and you can practice this 10 to 20 times as well, okay? You ready? Nice and soft. I'll practice one more. That is a much safer way to land. I'm not hurt. My bones and my joints are feeling really good, and now it's your turn to practice those, okay? Alright everyone, we should be back now. I have one more giving activity for us to practice with, and I think it's a really important one. And it's learning how to give when we catch a ball. And in particular, learning how to give when we catch something that's a little bit hard. So when I was younger, I was only 12 and I actually played my first senior game of cricket. And I was in the field and one of the men hit the ball really, really hard at me. And the ball came really hard and I just stuck my hands up to catch it. And the ball cracked into my hands, I dropped it, and I actually ended up breaking a finger. And that's because I didn't give with that force of the ball. I just let it hit me in the hand and it hurt. So what we're going to learn how to do today is to give with the force of the ball. And you might see me do this in some of the videos, particularly with those wooden spoon catches that we were doing, where my hand actually follows the path of the ball. So I don't just throw it up and catch it like that, because it could bounce out, just like that one did. What I actually do is, when I throw it up, and I'm about to catch it, I start to bring my hands down and I go with that force, just like with our jumping before and now falling with our arms. So I throw it up and I come down with that force, and if you do it correctly, the ball shouldn't bounce out. So once again, and you could also use that in a game. If a ball was coming side on, you could come back with the ball to take some of that force away so it didn't hit your hand so hard. But for today, to make it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more challenging, you're going to need something hard and flat, and I have a chopping board here, or I could also use a hard covered book, and you will need to try and find something like this around the house, a bouncy ball. It could be one of those cheap rubber bouncy balls that you get in those dollar machines, or it could be one of those down ball bouncy balls that I see you using at school. And what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to throw it up and I'm going to keep my board flat and hard, and it's going to bounce. Now you might have seen I didn't move the board down to catch that ball, and there was a lot of force and the ball bounced. Now that is not what we want to do. What we want to try and do is, as the ball comes down, we want to bring the board down at the same speed, and we want to try and catch the ball without it bouncing much at all. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can do that, and it looks like this. Much smaller bounce there, but it still bounced a little bit. See if I can do less. Oh, not too bad. Oh, that one virtually didn't bounce at all, because I brought the board down and I gave with the force of the ball, and it never had much force on the board. It didn't bounce the other way. So what you're going to try and do now is to try and do a catch that is almost perfect, that doesn't bounce at all. So you can press pause and you can have a go at doing that if you like, but before you do, I'll try and show you one from side on, of one not giving with the force and one giving with the force. Not giving, big bounce. Giving, little tiny bounce. Alright everybody, have a practice of that. You can do as many of those as you want, but try to get that bounce down to a minimum. and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you back at school next week. Bye!